Hello, welcome to a special edition of our podcast brought to you by Sloga's platform. As part of the 13th Slovenian Development Days, or Slovenskih razvojnih dnevi, held under the theme Business for Global Solidarity. We are exploring how partnerships between the private sector and civil society can drive meaningful change in international development and humanitarian aid. Today, we are joined by Samar Zughool, a passionate advocate for sustainable development and a representative of one of Sloga's member organizations, Reka Si. Samar brings a wealth of experience working across borders and sectors to promote global learning, equality, and resilience. In this conversation, we'll dive into her personal journey, the mission of the organization, and the opportunities she sees in cross-sector collaboration. Whether you're a policymaker, entrepreneur, student, or simply curious about how global solidarity works in practice, this episode is for you. Let's get started. Hello, Samar. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Welcome. Could you start by telling us a bit about yourself and your journey into development work?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for the introduction and for having me in this episode, in this special edition. I am Samar Zughool from Reka Si. We are a diasporic intersectional feminist organization doing research and art. Our main topics is mainstreaming gender equality and intercultural learning in sustainable development. So in our organization, we are designing and developing participatory training courses for global learning in sustainable development, for mainstreaming gender equality, and for intercultural management. We also do participatory research. We produce policy papers and policy briefs, for example, for the EU Gender Action Plan and external actions, and also in the Euro-Mediterranean region for the new agenda for the Mediterranean, which is known as the renewed partnership with the Southern Neighborhood. This is what we are doing. We also, including this, we do community arts. This community arts is a form of artivism. We work with women who migrated to Slovenia to produce theater, exhibitions, arts that is socially engaged, where we include and engage the wider society with the aim of building our capacities and our awareness towards gender equality and interculturalism.
Thank you, Samar. Can you just say in us a bit how has being part of Sloga helped you connect with other actors in the field of development and humanitarian work?
There was different programs through Sloga where we met colleagues and civil society organizations with like working in similar fields, and through different programs, like for example, Connect for Global Change, where we had the opportunity to share our expertise and engage in participatory trainings to mainstream gender equality throughout the works and the projects of non-governmental organizations, which is a great value for us. Also through Sloga, we had access to policy advocacy, to meet with policymakers on different levels, including the EU level, to reach our voices and what we find through participatory action research on gender mainstreaming in the international relations of the European Union. And of course, also networking and reaching more to diverse audiences. For example, next month on 15th of November, we will have a community performance called Al-Ghawazi Napoti. Al-Ghawazi are female belly dancers who were banned from Cairo to Upper Egypt in 1834. And this community performance is co-produced by women with migration experience to Slovenia. And the aim of it is to reach a wider aspects of the society to increase knowledge about intercultural learning and the importance of gender equality. So this is what we so far, like in summary, what brought to us being member in Sloga, accessing different circles, connecting between different circles, and promoting our mission, which is mainstreaming gender equality in international relations and in the work of civil society organizations.
That's quite a lot. You're working, you're very busy and very outgoing. So I'm just asking you, this year Slovenian Development Days focus on the role of the private sector in global solidarity. What that theme mean to you? Because it's about the private sector. How do you work with that?
Yeah, this is a very important theme that we need to think about as non-governmental organizations. So before we talk about cooperation with the private sector, we need to talk about our relation to the private sector. We as non-governmental organizations, we are not only service providers. We should always remember that we are connected to grassroots activism, to policy advocacy. And our initial role as monitoring the practices in the private sector, monitoring and combating malpractices, for example, like greenwashing, when some products are like presented as being green and environmentally friendly, like electric cars, but there's exploitations of human rights and environmental rights beyond our geographical borders, to raise awareness about that and not to forget our role as monitoring bodies on this for human dignity. Another example, for example, raising awareness and combating and promoting the BDS movement, the boycott, divest, and sanction on companies that are contributing for settler colonialism in occupied Palestine and involved in enabling the ongoing genocide in Gaza. It's important to think about our relation with the private sector. And this, of course, also includes cooperation. Cooperation with the private sector is important. However, what is more important is for us to be aware with whom we want to cooperate and why. For example, when we want to cooperate with companies, they should be responsible companies that are not using us to greenwash or wash any kind of malpractices. Examples of cooperation, we are, of course, very much needed to give trainings on gender equality. For example, even in countries where there's no discriminatory gender unequal policies. So there's, let's say, in other words, there is no explicit policies that are discriminating against women. Even in these countries, we still have gender bias. There's wage gap, there is gender gap in representation, in leadership, and this is because of stereotypes, gender profiling. So even if we overcome inequalities as a form of policy, of course, years and years of discrimination against women and diverse gender groups does not go away overnight. It is embedded in social interactions. And here comes our roles, where we develop critical training programs to ensure inclusive and equal working environments. Another example of what kind of cooperation we can have or we should have with the private sector is building alliances with whom we want to ally and why. In this way, we can, for example, ally with local farmers, with local producers to promote their products, to support them, to encourage and to raise awareness between the wider society about what is responsible consumption and why we need to choose what we buy, what we consume, what we need, and to encourage, of course, as I said before, wider social attitude like fair trade, critical consumption, and supporting and allying with local farmers and local producers.
Do you think, is there any successful collaborations you have been part of that show how business and civil society can work together? Are there any successful collaborations you have been part?
It's an ongoing process. What I have in my mind right now, it's a project through Reka Si that was supported and still supported by the Ministry of Environment in Slovenia. And it is a project that my colleague is working on. It is about building or co-building an online platform to support local farmers in Haloze region, where we can promote products that is locally made, and the profit goes directly to the people, not to multinationals and multi-corporations. So this kind of alliance and supporting local farming and raising awareness about the products that exist, and like consuming responsibly and critically more than responsibly.
Interesting. Do you think that will NGOs actually educate the private sector and the wider public about fair trade in the future?
This depends again about, this is a very good question, because it depends on what is our relation to ourselves as NGOs. Are we only service providers, or we also advocate for public awareness and for maintaining values based on the human dignity? If we keep the balance and we keep working, we connect with different sectors without forgetting that, first of all, we are part of civil society, then yes, we can bring these insights within the private sector as equal partners. So it is not about against cooperation, but it is about ethical and equal cooperation with the private sector. And as long as we keep this position, then we can have equal partnerships, equal cooperation, where we can cooperate together to make sure that we work for equal values and values based on human dignity and, of course, environmental justice.
If we're looking ahead, what opportunities do you see for future cooperation, especially in the context of humanitarian aid and sustainable financing?
Yeah, well, when it comes to humanitarian aid, of course, here we also need to focus on people-to-people approaches. So I see a potential in diversifying financial models, not following only top-down approaches of funding, to work from people to people, and to make sure, for example, that we are following an approach of humanitarian reparation instead of aid. So it is more about equal partnerships in a global scale, and to make sure that there is a transparent watching of how fund is directed and to where it goes. And this is, we play an important role as non-governmental organizations, because we are part of civil society and we have connections that maybe other sectors don't have. And then we can make sure that when there's an international development cooperation, we keep an eye and we give a voice for people who their rights are violated beyond our geographical borders, where the fund goes, a transparent way of how what is called as humanitarian aid is directed, and basically also mainstreaming gender equality. For example, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Slovenia have their own strategy for gender mainstreaming or mainstreaming gender equality in humanitarian aid. And this is something that is important for us to make sure that such guidelines are implemented. Also, Slovenia announced that it will have its own feminist foreign policy. So this is something that we can always use it to maintain and to develop international relations that stand to the value that is mentioned, for example, in the gender mainstreaming guidelines in humanitarian aid and international development cooperation by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Slovenia. And of course, Slovenia recently took a lot of important actions on a political sphere in support for the rights of Palestinians for self-determination. So this is, even that Slovenia does not maybe have yet the strategy of feminist policy written, but it showed by action of how when we declare feminist foreign policy, it is not only about documents that are written, it's about actions. So for us as non-governmental organizations, we can ensure to mainstream gender equality in international development cooperation, and that international development cooperation is fulfilling the promises of feminist foreign policies.
Thank you. What message would you like to share with participants of the Slovenian Development Days and young people who want to get involved?
That when we saying sustainable development, it might sound like vague for some people based on from which sector they come. But then if we look to what does it mean in a practice, it is something that is impacting our daily life. It is something that we can address by taking concrete actions. And I invite them to get more access to such important events, network, and learn more of what we mean by sustainable development and why it is a matter for each person, regardless of their background, where they live, their age group. So network, learn, and connect.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Samar, for sharing your insights and experience. Thank you. Your work truly embodies the spirit of this year's theme, which is business for global solidarity. And we invite all listeners to join us at the 13th Slovenian Development Days from October 14th to 17th in Ljubljana, where voices like Samar's will help shape the future of development cooperation. Thank you so much, Samar, so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Natasha. I just want to conclude with one sentence that is very important for me, that when we talk also about sustainable development, gender equality is not one goal of sustainable development, it's an integral part. It is a cross-cutting issue. So for everyone to keep that in mind as well. And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, that is true. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.